Hi there, everybody. We're now meeting with Patrick-Lichty, and Patrick is an artist who previously took the Klein-Artist-Works course. And Patrick has, as you can see us talking to him, he's a real human being, but also he's got a large virtual persona and has done really well creating an identity for himself without leaving the studio. Let me mute everybody here and then unmute Patrick, and we will get started. Patrick, I'll go ahead and pull that thing up while you tell us a bit about where you went to high school and how you got from there to here.
High school. Okay. I'm originally from, I was originally born in Akron, Ohio, 1962.
That's where I am at the moment. I'm in Akron right now.
Are you?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I was, let's see, I went to the University of Akron as an electrical engineer, but I was raised by an artist. And really what happened is that I met my first wife, who was a art and theater historian, and after asking me, what I really wanted to do with my life, I, did, of course, the thing that everyone would scream and run for the hills for, saying that I wanted to be an artist and designer. And so that was about 1990, and I quit my engineering job. I started a small design firm, and actually the thing is that I went out and built up a design firm and a fine art practice from North Canton, Ohio, starting really in about 1989, just about from nothing. And let's see, without sounding too over the top, I've been involved with I've been in the Whitney Biennial and under the pen name of Artmark, and have been in Sundance twice, Venice, Maribor, Yokohama Triennial, working with Xiaofei. And the thing is that I'm in new media, which isn't necessarily which has really been embraced by the contemporary art world as of late, and has really integrated a lot. But back in the 90s, we were really sort of building the plane as it flies, as you'll see. But to tell you the truth, I think what's really interesting between what I'm going to talk about tonight and what Molly talks about and what Paul's been talking about is really just sort of different facets on the same jewel. So here's the thing is that, as you'll see from my background here, I actually have a bachelor's in electronic engineering. My mom really taught me how to be an artist, and I just started reading and going and talking to people, and some of the things that I've gotten. I've been in the Whitney Biennial. I got a Smithsonian Museum of American Art Award. And then actually to teach, I went back and got my MFA from Bowling Green State University in 2006. I teach at Columbia College right now in Chicago. And I'm one of a activist group called the Yes Men, who have 2 movies out. And as I said, I was one of the founding members of a group called Artmark that the Yes Men used to be. And we were in the Whitney Biennial in 2000. And what's interesting here is that, say for example, there was no formal art training in 2004 and a practice in rural Ohio. What's with this? So these are some of the things that I want to share with you guys tonight. So next slide. So, when Paul and I were talking about this, he said, get on social media, get a website. And I said, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's only the first step. And to be perfectly honest, I think it's really kind of a red herring that people, put so much emphasis on, website and social media, because for me, it was really, that's only been support material. And to back Paul up, I think it's really been about the creation of relationships, because to me, I think really the creation of relationships are more important than promotions. And to do the thing there, to just quote the line there, conversations and contributions create relationships that lead people to your documentation, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's how you get known. So, next one.
I'm still thinking about these relationships are more important than promotions. You know, I mean, you might spend $500 to $5,000 on some promotional material, but basically tapping on 3 friends or growing 3 friends would be probably yield better results within 6 months.
Oh, I totally agree. Is that I'll talk about this a little bit later. Is that I became part of a couple of online communities in which I made you know, some friends who were you know, made some friends who are now curators at the Whitney and professors at Brown and you know, major art historians and that sort of thing. And we were just hanging out online in this, you know, when new media was just forming as a genre. You know, and you know, nobody really knew what we were or understood what we were doing. We were kind of building the plane. So this is sort of an interesting little thing I want to throw out at you folks. You know, is that I think that there's what I call traditional business model, and then I think what I like to think of as what I base a lot of my work on is relationship model. So, you know, the idea of setting up a quantitative business plan sort of thing, working with the idea of the singular artist, putting together a business, you know, setting up sales, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Working with galleries and art centers and having a sort of closed proprietary sort of model. I think one example of this is Jeff Koons. The other hand, what I like to do is I like to be much more social, community engagement. I collaborate a lot. I believe so much in collectivism because we'll talk about that in a little bit. And create groups and movements, basically get together with groups of people, and basically that's how the Surrealists, that's how the Dadaists, that's how you know, all the movements got together. You know, you got together a group of people under a common banner, and you with a common idea, and that's what we're doing in my augmented reality group, manifest.ar. We have about 20 people, and you know, we're basically starting an augmented reality movement, which is kind of interesting. Create friendships that create projects. That's what I'm doing with a friend of mine. Say, for example, you know, all my collaborative projects start out with relationships, even with friends, who just said, "Hey, you know, you're doing something kind of weird. You want to work on something?" And I said, "Sure. It sounds like it looks like it's going to be successful, and that's great." And then there's another, actually a really great artist by the name of Eden Unlada, who's a Turkish-British artist in Chicago. He just wrote me the other day. We've been working on another project with a bunch of Iranians and through the net, and that's going to get shown in a couple of good places. And he said, "You want to work on electronic book experimental projects? You know, apply to the NEA for $10,000." And I said, "Okay, great, let's do it." You know, so that's the sort of thing there. And the other deal is that, you know, the relationship model is open, it's shared. You know, it's a little slippery when it comes to things like money, but what happens is that you have to be with people you can trust and that you respect, and, you know, who will share and share equally, because there are people, of course, who will go and grab things and run, but, you know, you have to take that chance. And then the other thing is that, you know, the idea of openness and collaboration and what they call the open source model is that, you know, you're sharing, but also the other thing, and on the other hand, you've got this group of people that's going out and promoting the work and creating a sort of like a cloud of relationships. And then so, "Oh, okay, John Craig Freeman has just been talking about, you know, the stuff, and he's been telling me about your stuff, and that's great, you know. So come on over and let's talk about the work." So, you know, in this way, what I'm thinking about here is that, you know, working in sort of a more cloud-based, open sort of model has really.
Define cloud-based.
Well, just kind of imagine maybe people as like little points of mist in a cloud. So in other words, if you have just sort of like loose associations and such, you have just sort of loose associations that help promote one another and create these affiliations and things like that. I found them to be really strong. In other words, say for example, I've been part of this performance art group in a virtual world called Second Life, called Second Front, that's been in art news and things like that. Well, from that, I've been involved in something called Wikipedia Art, which got into the Wall Street Journal. There's another thing that's been involved with National Geographic called Tweets in Space that I'm tangentially involved in. And then there's another thing called the Super Art League, which has a bunch of artists that have been, say, like in the MoMA and that sort of thing, that are doing things using an online gaming engine called DC Universe Online, and we're creating a comic book. But the thing is that these are artists who've all been sort of cross-pollinating and working on different projects together. And some of us are here on one project, some of us are here on another project. It's sort of like going from Van Halen to the Starship Project, which had like Eddie Van Halen and Brian May from Queen and, things like that. In other words, like kind of going from project to project, but, there's some person, somebody is here one time and yet another, but they'll be back at another time. But the thing is that, you wind up creating this sort of skein of pretty well-known artists, through, this common wheel, which is really, really, really good. So how do I get started? I basically looked and found people who I respect or I wanted to be like, and I sought them out and I worked with them or worked under them or something like that. I said, become friends, study with them, clean their car, floss their cat, whatever. The best example of this is probably on the next page, is that there's an artist by the name of Henry Hallam, who's a really well-known glass artist from Kent, Ohio. And I just wanted to learn how to work glass and learn neon, and I was this engineer, and he came up to me and said, he's from Brooklyn, and he says, what, some engineer wanting to learn how to do glass art or something like that? And I basically did, the Karate Kid sort of thing. I just basically sat there and said, I want to do this, until he let me do it. And I stayed there and worked so hard, I became the neon shop manager for a few months, and I just had unlimited access to, blemished neon tubes and unlimited access to the fabrication shop, which, you'd imagine that'd be like maybe $30, $40 an hour. So I probably got thousands of dollars for nothing, just because I just wanted to be a disciple of this guy. Another thing is that I was interested, of course, I'm interested in digital media, so I was out on CompuServe, Delphi, and America Online, which were online communities, and found people who were starting to work in digital art, and there were curators out there, for God's sake. This was amazing. So I just started working, with people. It's also kind of amazing that, curators are interested in some of these really, really new things, and because they want, they want some of the new stuff, and that's great. So I was out there working with a bunch of people on things and kind of got some things discovered, and did that. Went to some conferences. 1996, some friends of mine, Alex Galloway and Mark Tribe. Alex Galloway's got a lot of books published now. He's at NYU. He studied at Duke. And they were in New York, and they started this little online community called RiseHome.org, which got picked up by the New Museum. And it's the new media community at the New Museum in New York. And basically the thing is that because I helped get that thing going, most of the time that I can usually go over to the New Museum and call up Lauren Cornell and say, hey, you want to get a cup of coffee? And boom, the new media person at the New is, we're just chatting about things and seeing where things are going. But the thing is that you know, and this is important, is the fact that I'm interested in what they're doing, but I don't necessarily want something from them. I'm very interested in what is going to happen in the community, so that, you know, that can commonly shape my practice, and I can do things like curatorial projects that can help them. So this is something that's very important. You know, I just started collaborating with people on and on and on, and these things got shown at the Warhol Museum, the Whitney Biennial, Venice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in the same way, and this is kind of maybe just sort of like a shill, but what I'm doing is that what I wanted to do is that I was just kind of wondering, you know, what I wanted to do. And I went and did Paul's workshop, and you know, I just wanted to check in with myself a little bit and reinforce my existing knowledge. And then, but on the other hand, and this is really, really important to me, is that I wanted to get involved with Paul's social network. You know, I wanted to know the other artists, because I really felt kind of remote because I had been so online. Ooh, you went backwards. Okay, I always have something to bring to the table. Sycophants are dime a dozen. Let's see here.
Inflation, you ought to be able to get 2 dozen sycophants for 10 cents.
I know, tell me about it, huh?
Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe they cost more. Hold on a sec, Patrick.
Yeah, please go.
I want to know if anybody wants any questions of Patrick before we, you know, does anybody want to jump in now and ask a salient question here? Hey, somebody asked how to take their hand down. I can still see it's up. Does somebody know how to take their hand? This is the only thing I can't see, is how to take your hand down. You guys know? No, huh? All right, Patrick, let's keep going. You want me to go to the next slide?
Wait, you hit the same button that says raise hand, and it says lower hand.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
Did anybody want to ask a question? Look at that. The hands are, oops, Sarah Jo. Click on the thing that says raise hand, lower hand, or something.
Woo!
Was that a cheer? That's exciting. All right, Patrick, back to you. Go ahead.
Okay, next slide, please.
I'm coming.
Okay. Okay, so offering something to, I really kind of feel like a lot of the more successful artists, or the ones that I respect the most, have engaged in what I call the gift economy. And that's always the idea of, not necessarily for money, but, you know, being able to, you know, give something salient to the community. What I do is that I write. And I think something that's interesting is that, in my opinion, most famously, historically famous artists wrote, and they also use spell checkers. So, like I didn't do that. So anyway,
happens to me all the time too.
Yeah, there you go. So
it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's but you know, what do you write about? Write a position piece, write a commentary, or I mean, I write a lot of theory, and that isn't for everybody, I know. So, and find sites to put them on, or respond to blogs or something like that. Run your own blog. But the thing is that I think it's really important to run a blog that isn't entirely about your work, because what happens is that I think it was interesting that Molly was talking about is that sometimes artists like to talk about themselves too much, and I think it's really important to be generous in you know, really trying to bring others into the conversation that you're having, or nevertheless, you know, showing a really active interest in, you know, in what others are doing, and show that sort of generosity of spirit. Curate. Actually, what I was thinking is that, you know, a lot of these things are sort of, you know, going back into things that we were talking about in the last thing, is that I can talk a little bit about how to curate without. I'm kind of famous for curating ad hoc for a budget of near nothing. So we can talk about that. Keep dialogues going online. We'll talk about that. I keep talking about collaborating. Help friends Kickstarters. You know, I mean, you don't have to, give 50 or I just gave $300 to this thing called Tweets in Space that my friends Nathaniel Stern and Scott Kildall are doing. But the thing is that actually, the funny thing is that Nathaniel just bought 6 video screens off me for $300, and I'm just basically just giving him the money back. So but the thing is that they've been my partners for a long time on a lot of projects. So that's just another part of the gift economy. And the thing is that I know that when I want to do some DVDs of my work in the upcoming year, I know they're going to be there for me. So that's going to be fine. I even did it for my ex-wife. So kind of funny there. Let's see here, and just in talking, just help someone else do what they want to do. Because it's just an old-fashioned Chicago axiom of one hand scrubbing the other, right? Be generous. Okay. I'm going fairly slow through these. I should probably pick up the pace a little bit. And be where you want to be, and that's back to where I was talking about. But the thing is, you can do this on the net, but you have to find out where the people you want to know are lurking. Actually, there are lots of sites. A lot of people think that since I'm in new media, these communities are just about new media and websites, etc. Forget that one. Go to the next one. But what happens is that I found this place called Rhizome, and I actually went out to say for example. It's very funny. I'm putting my finger up on my screen and underlining things, expecting you to see it. For my community, there are things like nettime.org, furtherfield.org. But guess what? There's USA Arts. There's something called Haystack, Hastac. You can just go out and just put in arts listserv, LISTSERV, and there are just tons of places that'll come up. And actually, to tell you the truth, if you want later on, if you want me to try to find you something, I would be more than willing to try to help you find a place to have a conversation. That would be no problem at all. What's next here? I think that might be what I'm talking about. The next page. Yep. Okay. Well. Yeah, and it's really, what I was talking about earlier about rhizome.org. But the interesting thing here, and this is the nugget that I want you to take away from on this particular page, is the fact that I was in North Canton, Ohio. I wasn't even going to Cleveland. But what happened is that I got involved in an online listserv and became part of all these conversations in primarily Berlin, London, and New York. And within 2 years, I would go to New York, I would go hang out at Postmaster's Gallery, and then we'd all get together, about 30 or 40 people, and one of my friends, one of my curator friends critic friends for Flash Art by the name of Peter von Brandenburg, he used to go by Blackhawk. We would have about 40 people going out for a party, Jennifer and Kevin McCoy, Mark Napier, Corey Archangel, basically all the people who are showing like at Bit Forums now, all the big folks, and it's just the fact that, and it was just because of the fact that I was contributing to this particular site and helping drive the community, and really helping drive the drive the conversation and being helpful to people. Let's see here. 14? Ooh, that's your phone call.
I know, I just turned it off. I don't know who it was. I'm sorry. There you go.
Oh, no. Okay, get involved. We've been talking about this anyway, right? So 15?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was just kind of talking about this whole thing. I sought out people who were doing things that I wanted to be proficient with, I wanted to do with things. and with Rhizome, and then there's this online space called Second Life that some of you may know or may not know. It's basically almost like a big 3D chat room. And I realized that there were, these spaces that had a lot of people who shared my interests, including curators and gallerists and artists, and they had connections that and who wanted to share. So, so I was out on the conversations online and also volunteered for festivals. And so, but the one thing that I've always been really good at is finding where the connected folks are on online areas that have been in the media. So in 2006, Second Life was, the popular medium. And the thing is, what's really interesting is like, was it Diana? A lot of people who've been on the KAW conversations, like Diana Davis and Jerry Saltz, and just a whole bunch of really interesting, cool people who are connected, are out on Facebook. And the thing is that it isn't a matter of just being their friend. It's the matter of saying, okay, you're talking about something, just talk to Jerry about, respond to what he's doing and have a conversation. This is great. So, so what do you do? What am I interested in right now? There's actually this Second Life game-like sort of environment called Cloud Party. That's an app through Facebook, and I've actually found a couple curators who are out there, and I'm probably going to curate the first show in Cloud Party, and then do a little do a website that'll be documentation about it. So, which is but then the thing is that I've got connections to places like the New Museum, the Whitney, the Tate, things like that, and then I'm going to show them that. And just because of my online making online curatorial documentation, online curations, doing online curation and doing documentation sites for the different curatorial projects I've been at. It's kind of funny is that the New Museum just called me up and said, "Hey Patrick, you did the first handheld device show. Do you mind if we archive that and put that into the New Museum archive?" And I said, "Well, hell yeah, sure, absolutely, do it." And so, so there's plenty of online forums where you can be part of the part of conversation. Here's like one of the most badass places to be is Chicago Artist Resource, and I just put down where you can get involved in the topics. Humanities, Arts, Science, and Technology Advanced Collaborative, Haystack. I'm a member of Americans for the Arts. So, remember, to look for things like arts listservs and arts discussion boards and arts discussion forums, or use categories like public arts, painting, sculpture, and find places where people are talking, because there will be all sorts of opportunities and conversations, and you can make friends, and it's, I don't know, it's, maybe I'm mistaken, but when I think that people think about social media, they're just thinking about making connections, and they're not thinking about building relationships and being part of the gift economy, which really, really builds up amazing karma. And I think this is really what I believe in more, rather than just, just being seen. I believe in going and making connections and making friends with people, and then showing them my documentation. Because there's actually one artist that I met at Joe B that I showed at a couple weeks ago in the Face Mask show, she showed me. She said, "Oh, hi, want to be my friend on Facebook?" And then, bang, there was, she sent me her gallery link, and I actually got put off. And I just kind of said, you know what, why don't we chat a little bit and just figure out where we met and that we had a great time and that sort of thing, and then show me your stuff. Because I'm not only an artist, I write and I curate, and I do a lot of stuff. And I'm just sort of like saying, let's have a cup of coffee before you tell me. Anyway, never mind, we won't go there. But yeah, I got a good story with that, but I won't tell it unless people ask me. So anyway, what's 17 look like?
I forgot.
Sir. Okay. Here we go. Lots of places you can be heard and seen online. Reply to prominent blogs like Artfag City, that's Patty Johnson's blog, Huffington Post, the RiseUp.org blog, and as I said before, just go out and find prominent practitioners' threads on their profiles. Like the KAW thing, Jerry Salt. I'm a friend with David Hockney online. Sometimes I chat with him on things. Here's a really interesting little thing. Think about this. Write Wikipedia entries about artists you know that haven't been documented yet, and you know what you're doing about their work. And so that does a lot of things. That establishes you as a person with expertise. It gives you a line item. And the thing is that you're contributing to a community, which is really important. So once again, I'm just kind of going along the lines. It's like, and I can't say it's enough. This is different than promotion. This is the, equivalent to having a conversation, establishing a relationship. To me, I agree with Paul, is that I think that relationships are everything. And that's the takeaway that I got from KAW when I went through, what was it, second or third class? Second.
Third.
So, and then Tom Burtonwood was in the first. And by the way, he's a really great guy to know in the Chicago community. He has a pop-up gallery on 23 East Madison, and he is an amazing person. And so, and he knows a lot about pop-up galleries and things like that. Okay, my screen just went blank, and I'm back. And let's see here. What's on 18? Because the thing is, I want to have a conversation here for part of this time. So, okay, working your profile, curate a show, and then promote the show's website. If you're really ambitious, publish a catalog. So part of the reason how I got involved at an international scale was I hosted new media exhibitions long before any institutions would touch the genre. There's a place that I was actually a fellow at called the IBEAM Art and Technology Atelier in Chelsea. But the thing is that they were thinking about doing a handheld device art show in something like 1999, but they couldn't get the money. And there was actually a guy who I think was scarfing my ideas. I wanted to do a screensaver show. He did it. I wanted to do a desktop screen capture show. He did it. And then I started talking about doing a handheld show, and he started talking with IBEAM about this. And I said, okay, screw this. I'm going to go, and I'm going to get everybody together, and I'm going to do a show for next to nothing. And basically, I created an online show with work you could download into your, at that time, Palm 3s and things like that. And I scooped the New Yorkers, and that's actually the show that's being archived by the New Museum. So the thing is that
that's cool.
So yeah, it's just go and do it, because guess what? Online, what do you have to what do you have to pay for? You have to pay for have people who are willing to show with you, and there's no money involved. All you have to do is pay for the web stuff, and you have to maybe learn Dreamweaver, which is no great shakes. And then the thing is if you've been talking with people about all this stuff, guess what? Tons of symposiums, tons of art festivals. Go find them and go hang out with them and go drink with them and have some coffee and have a good time. And say for example, I did a residency in Turkey 2 years ago with this guy named Burak Arakan, who does these really beautiful graph drawings. And there was Arts, Humanities, and Complex Systems symposium at Northwestern, last week, and you know, a bunch of friends, and he was a keynote speaker. And so what was great is that it was free, and he and I hung out for 2-3 days, caught up on things, and it was amazing. But there's also, in my area, there's something called the International Symposium of Electronic Arts. There's Ars Electronica, Transmedial. You know, in your case, it might be something like maybe going to let's see, you're going to Art Basel Miami, going to the College Art Association, which I go to, and you know, Documenta, the Venice Biennale, you know. And the thing is that, you know, if you've been having conversations with some people on some of these sites, you know, say, hey, are you going to Venice? You know, and then just say, yeah, that's great. And I mean, I know that not everybody can afford to go to Venice, but, you know, hey, even if it's the Ravenswood Art Walk in Chicago, it's a matter that getting together and talking with people and being able to pool your resources is just so incredibly important. So that's, and the thing is that then you come up with ideas, then you make more connections, and it's just, you know, synergy happens, and it's amazing. Write publicly, even if it's just asking questions. Be a dialogue driver. So, okay, this is just me. This little art and hit theory book is what got jammed down my throat in my MFA, and the thing is that a lot of people got jammed down their throat in their BFA. And let's put it this way: if you get in that book, how crazy is that? So as I kind of said, is that I think that writing artists have many more opportunities, you know, through writing theory. I'm currently doing a ton of catalog essays, position papers, and see, the thing is, I'm now getting paid for catalog essays. I'm basically getting paid anywhere from $250 to $1,000 a piece for a catalog entry. For a catalog essay of about 1,000 to 1,500 words. I just did one for something called The Tipping Point of Between Me and We down at Black Pearl in Hyde Park. And I won't say how much they paid me, but I mean, I got paid, which was great. And working with Tempest Hazel was just absolutely amazing. She's one of the best curators, up-and-coming curators in Chicago at the moment. So, and that's 2 T's, Tempest. And so the thing is that also when you're writing, you know, it creates a context for your work for curators and critics, and just find these listservs and mail lists and blogs and respond to things, and, you know, talk on new, you know, have a big mouth, in my opinion. So, and believe it or not, self-publish, and that's fine. You know, you don't have to be with Blackwell or Rutledge or something like that. There are some museums and art centers that will handle self-published books from Lulu and Blurb and things like that. Some friends of mine like Trevor Schultz and Geert Lovink, who run the Institute for Distributed Culture and the Institute for Network Culture, they basically do print on demand for most of their institute's books, which is really, really interesting. Tom Burtonwood, who I did the essay for, he was in the first class. He used Blurb for his artist book. So, you know, this is all valid stuff. So, let's see.
4 more to go.
Let's see here. I'm going down through here, and okay, got it. Rule number 6: collaborate. Networks equals networking. And I kind of say that I can't say enough about this. There's strength in numbers. Why? Because there's cross-promotion, there's a larger talent pool, there's sharing. If you're doing grant writing, maybe you're not good at grant writing. Maybe one of your partners can be good at grant writing. So you don't have to be alone doing this stuff. Cross-pollination, skill sharing, circle sharing. Guess what? You know what we were talking about in the last one? We were talking about sharing our mailing lists. Exactly. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. Credit sharing. Guess what? You've got a line item, so does your buddy. That's easy. So part of projects that I've been involved in that have done that, Artmark, Whitney Biennial, we were at the Kunsthal Vienna, just a whole bunch of ZKM Karlsruhe, Terminal Time. And I was a supporting artist for that for some friends of mine, and we showed it at the Warhol. The Yes Men, we have 2 movies out. Second Front, we were at the Performa 07 Biennial and the Yokohama Triennial, and I'm working with Al Hansen from Fluxus's daughter, Bibi Hansen, who's Beck's mom, to create a project called Virtual Fluxus, and we're getting a bunch of traction with that. So, let's see. Okay, I'm just about done. Rule 7, be a friend. Page 26 is that, isn't it nicer to be loved than being a selfish bastard? Sure. So I kind of said some stuff about this elsewhere, but volunteer, write, curate, collaborate, give to Kickstarter. And the thing is that, yeah, there is no shortage for free work, but the thing is as your voice gets better known, the funny thing is it gains value and you start getting more and more paid work. And the thing is that don't be afraid to say yes, but also don't be afraid to say no. And don't be afraid to get your ask on. Say for example, if somebody says, I want you to write for this is like, if you want to write for it, understand that you may not get money, but it's okay to ask because they may try to go find you some money for it, and that's cool. So, let's see here. So basically what happens is that in Paul's thing, there isn't a page 27, but I have a page 27 on mine. We're at 8:52, and I think this is a good time to kind of leave off. I've got a bunch of domains. I've got voyd.com, which doesn't really have anything on it right now. It has a whole bunch of subsites. I'm just starting to get Patrick-Lichty.com running again. I just completely reworked the infrastructure to it, and if anybody wants to know about any of the stuff any of the stuff I've got online, I've got a YouTube and a Blip TV channel. But right at the moment, I'm really sort of rebuilding a lot of my own profile at the moment. But I'd be absolutely thrilled to have a conversation. And I see some esteemed people out there like Ms. Kojalak, and I'm very glad to see. And yeah, let's talk. Let's yak. Let's yak.
Do you want to take a few questions now, Patrick, or do you want to start?
Yeah. No, let's go. Let's talk.
All right. So this attitude of yours that you've demonstrated in all these slides and over the last hour has grown over the past year or two. I mean, this is a track you've been on for like a decade at least, but you've honed it. Is that right? Right.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it seems like it's getting. I mean, one of the things I'm wondering about is if you could do this if you hadn't been a paid teacher, and I mean, a lot of what I'm after, but I'm not sure that it's always right, is to see that artists don't have to teach, so that they're making enough money doing what they want to do, that they don't have to take some other kind of straight job. Now, I don't have a problem with people who are teaching because they love doing it. So I'm wondering about the money in this approach that you're talking about.
Think about this. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've only been teaching for 6.
Okay.
So what was I doing for 14 years?
That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah. Okay. So what was going on is that I was working during the .com boom. I was doing a design. I had a little freelance design gig where I was designing computer-based training for Anderson, now Accenture and that sort of thing. And to tell you the truth, they had enough money that I only had to work half time. So I was probably making $40,000, $50,000 working half time. If I was working full time, I would have been making $120,000. But I wanted to be an artist, so that's kind of what I did. And then the only reason, and then I had a wife who was a tenured professor. Now that is something that I do find is a safety net. But the thing is that most of the time.
How long should you be married to one of those kind of people?
What career? She'd only maybe supported my career maybe 2-3 years out of 20 years being married. You know, so not that much, but it was nice to have a little bit of a safety net. Let's see. And then, but by and large, I either had another creative, you know, I had a creative studio, or actually, I'm a Herb Alpert fellow. So that was what is it? What they give us? They gave us $75,000 that year. So that kept me going for a couple years.
Okay.
You know,
let's talk about making art for a minute. Do you think that artists, do you think, what's your opinion about making virtual art and making physical art?
Well, the one thing that I think, that's a really good question, because you know that's my thing. I believe in going across the boundaries between physical and virtual art. I think that what happens is that it's like performance art. So you make work from the virtual. So I just had a solo show at Tom Burtonwood Space that was digital images that were made into tapestries. So I have something. If I want to have a show in a physical space, I can. But on the other hand, what my MO has been is to do online exhibitions and do virtual shows, etc., and just plaster the hell out of all the media, and you know, basically try to create some mind share saturation throughout my community. So what happens is that in my particular genre, you know, I'm really lucky in that you know, a lot of my community is largely online. So what happens is that I'm able to create a show and have it be in an online or a virtual space, and then be able to at least get the option of having it seen. You know, in other words, that people are aware of it and they know what's going on. And I almost always do a catalog, and I almost always do a documentation site if I curate a show. And so what happens then? There's something that is persistent. And there was somebody out there who was talking about how do I curate a show. You know what? It isn't that tough. I mean, you could find anything from. I mean, I hate to say it. I used to do it at coffee shops when I first started getting started out. You know, I like the pop-up idea that Molly had, but the thing is that from that, what's really cool is to make a catalog and make a website about it. And then so what happens is that, okay, you got to show up for a month, and then you take it down, and guess what? You've got this persistent stuff that you can show people and say, oh, wow, you did that? And said, yeah, this is really cool. And then you can show it to other curators and critics, etc. And, you know, you've got something that has a persistent buzz that happens, which is really great.
Cool. Let's see if anybody's got any questions. Anna, you have a question. Go ahead, Anna.
No, actually, I don't. I was just making some notes.
That's close enough.
You know, hey, Liz?
Yeah. Yes.
Did I answer your question okay about curating?
Yeah. I'm sure I probably might come up later with a little bit more in-depth ideas for that.
Okay, and I'm local.
Yeah. I actually, while you're talking, I was like, I'm gonna go and I add you on Facebook just so I don't lose you. So yeah, I was like, but I had a question about something unrelated to that now, where you were talking about how you make a blog and, you know, kind of start talking about other people, and you're talking more about creating the friendships and things like that. But my question is how much, you know, being an artist that's coming out yourself, how much do you give for other people in relation to giving to yourself? So like if I'm going to start talking about other people, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're all like, oh, thank you, you're like talking me up, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, where's, you know, kind of like, where's my half?
What happens is that, see, the thing is that brings in the curatorial function. So what happens is that you're sort of like the person who's running the party, who's introducing people. But the other thing is that then also, on the other hand, what happens is that interspersed with talking about what you're doing as well. You know, so in other words, it's conversational. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, in other words, it's sort of like saying, okay, I'm going to show this thing, or guess what, I had a really great time, you know, going to see, you know, the face mask show at Show B, or you know, there's something, you know, or just tell people that there's something gonna happen, you know, that's really cool up at you know, up at the Hinge Gallery or something, that, or Tom Burtwood's space, or you know, or Rafas, or you know, Gupta, you know, and just, so in other words, what happens is that, you get what I mean about talking about driving the conversation?
Yeah. Right.
You know, so what happens is that, you know, there's a great book, do you know Tipping Point? The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I'd really recommend it. It's not too expensive. He basically talks about 3 types of people. He talks about salesmen, who are people who can basically get an idea sold. Mavens, who are people who are like eternal teachers, and then connectors, people who kind of get people together. And so what happens is that by doing this sort of conversational thing on a blog, you're being a maven. You know, you're sort of like teaching people about your stuff, but they're also sort of like informing them about all the stuff that's happening. So it's basically creating yourself as a central node on the graph. You know, so in other words, you're driving the conversation. You're the person who's at the head of the table at the coffee, you know, at the coffee shop, and that sort of thing. But the thing is, you're also being generous, which is also really important, I think, because you know, you're not just going me. You're just saying, hey, guess what? You know, it's like, you know, you want to go to, you know, people wind up saying, says, hey, Liz is doing some good stuff, and she also knows everybody, and she also knows everything about what's going on. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you both. All right, Lynn, you had a question. Go ahead, Lynn. Wait a sec. Wait. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
My question was about self-publishing the books. Are you talking about like books of your own artwork, or books of your writings, or?
Yeah, I'm talking about everything. Let's see, I just published I published a book of poetry last year, and it did okay. And actually, the thing that I'm going to do, there are 2 things, is that let's see here. I'm going to publish. I'm going to self-publish an artist's book, and I'm going to use that for 2 things. I'm going to use that as documentation. I'm going to use it as a promotional tool, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as a portfolio piece to send to curators. You know, and then on the other hand is that I actually do have a book of my theory just coming out this year. We're trying to get it to an MIT press or Blackwell or something like that. But what happens is that my guy who runs the Institute for Network Culture in Amsterdam, he's got full credibility, but what happens is that he doesn't want to deal with setting up an academic press. So what he's using Lulu, you know, and he's put out maybe about 30 books, and he's just using Lulu as a device, you know. But the thing is the credibility is coming through his institution. Right. But he's using Lulu as his you know, distribution chain.
Yeah, so it's all on demand rather than.
Yeah, and he's got professional editors and things like that. You know, in other words, that, you know, it isn't slapdash stuff or anything like that. In other words, he actually hired an editor to assemble my book with me, and I'm going to have to go hire somebody to make the index. But you know, by the end, it's going to be something that's going to be comparable to something that comes out by Zone or MIT or anything like that. It's just the fact that we decided to have it be either available as an ebook or you know, as an on-demand. Yeah, it's just a.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I just have another question, just kind of in theory. You know, I teach also, and you know, make work and things. How do you decide when you say yes and when you say no? You know, if you're writing about these other things, I'd love to write more.
Right.
You know, beyond my institution, but how do you?
Right.
I mean, you have to be pretty savvy about, you know, where you position yourself or who you take on, or. What
do you mean? I mean, can you be a little more specific?
I guess like I could work 24 hours a day, you know.
Oh, me too.
About my career, honestly.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm surrounded by students, and some of them are fabulous, and some of them are,
yeah,
you know, probably less ambitious. But how do you? I mean, are you pretty savvy about when you write about something, or when you? I
think I'm a good pattern recognizer. You know, in other words, you know, I think I have a talent as being a good pattern recognizer. I'm usually able to spot trends and things like that pretty quick, pretty on the spot. But the thing is that you know, what do I say to somebody else? I say, really pick your passions, you know, and just, you know, do what you're passionate about. And the other thing is that, you know, don't go to the point where, you know, you drive yourself into the pavement either, because that's no good for you either. You know, it's the matter of, say, you know, be generous but be wise. If that makes any sense. You know, but the thing is that I do believe in being generous, though. You know, it really, you know, I don't want to think it's gonna. I don't want to expect it to pay back. But the thing is that I find that it does. And the other thing is I also get the satisfaction for helping build the culture that I want. And that's really important. You know,
that's a good point.
So,
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Gosha, I can't tell if you had a question and it went away, or you don't want to ask your question. Gosha, do you have a question?
Come on, Gosha. You want to talk to me?
How are you?
Hi, Gosha.
Hi. Patrick, I have a question in regards to digital art generation.
I'm sure you do.
There is some Molly Burns pointed that there are a few generation of artists. The first doesn't like second, or the third is you know, more grateful for what the first did and everything like that. How you position yourself in this digital art generation thing?
Okay. Well, there's a group of artists that were called cyber artists, like Lillian Schwartz and Ken Knowlton, and a lot of, you know, I could probably rattle off about a dozen people, you know, who were active from the 60s to the 80s. And the thing is, I consider myself second generation. You know, I consider myself somebody of what I'd call first wave new media, who helped basically build the new media genre in the 90s. And the thing is that that's really how I position myself. I position myself as one of the people who were, you know, sort of like one of the emergent 90s net art, new media and net artists. But then the thing is that I'm also one of the first virtual artists as well. So, you know, it's the fact that, you know, I'm kind of maybe doing I'm doing a Madonna trick maybe. You know, because now I'm doing augmented reality, which is where, for people who don't know what that is, it's the thing where you basically locate media throughout, you know, a geography, and you look at it through your cell phone, you know, when you're out in the space and things like that. So, you know, I've been doing new media, then I've been doing virtual art and that sort of thing, and now I'm doing augmented reality. So, you know, I keep reinventing myself, you know. But the thing is that people are also wondering about how do you put that into a gallery? Well, you make video, you make prints, you do things like that, and so it is a documentation. It's derivative work. So, you know, it's derivative or associative work rather. I don't consider it as documentation. You know, it's associative work. You know, so in other words, from that, you know, from the installation, you're making prints, you're making things like that. I've actually got a 3D printer, so, you know, one of these things that squirts out plastic and makes things, and, you know, so I'm making little statues, you know, from, you know, all these other works, you know. So everything all dovetails together, and I like this idea of working between the physical and working between the physical and the virtual, because then that's the marriage between the net and the gallery. And sometimes, as you very well know, having us having worked together so much, it's the idea that the net and the gallery aren't always congruent with one another.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And I want to recognize both Paul and Gosia for being two visionary people within the Chicago area for having been supportive of curating new media in this town. And I think the rest of the folks in the group here should know this.
Oh, shucks. Okay.
I feel double, honored because I am together with Paul-Klein, who is my hero in art. So I feel.
Okay, I'm blushing now. Next question.
All right.
Moving right along. Sarah Jo, you get the last word, except maybe Patrick does. Sarah Jo, go ahead, and try not to compliment me. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So Patrick, I really enjoyed listening to you, and I do have a question here. I don't forget. Well, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about the augmented reality thing.
Okay.
To touch on it, but then also just to say as a comment just before that is what's fascinating to me as you were evolving your sort of rules and your philosophy. Is the way that you have this generosity that you're interested in. I mean, I really love that. What's fascinating to me is that the work you do is so different than, I mean, the end or output and things that you happen to be interested in are quite, they're your own. And it's just, I would take that and do something else with it, but that's what I loved about it.
That'd be great, yeah.
Your way that you have developed that. But if you would, for a minute, just talk a little more. You started to say the thing with cell phones, and I can imagine that with the work that you do and as devices develop, that it would evolve, that you'd have to evolve with it. So
right. Okay. Well, there's something that's really interesting is that if you're in academia, you're always on the market, right? So what happens is that if I'm talking to someone, even a curator, if I'm talking to somebody who I'm trying for another job with, or I'm talking with a curator or something like that, they're saying, okay, what exactly is it do you do? And actually it was kind of interesting. Molly was sort of like that too. As I said, well, okay, here's the thing, is that I deal with new media that deals with aspects of love, memory translation, and information in sort of a Duchampian conceptual sort of way. So that kind of is a little bit of a monkey wrench. So because what happens is that what I'm doing is that there are two things. I have a lot of really old equipment, and I explore old media, and I'm always saying, you're doing something different, you're doing something different, you're doing something different. I said, guess what? I'm dealing with the same topics, but I'm doing them in different modes of production. Because what happens is that I'm always at the edge of what's happening right now, and technology evolves. And this idea that thinking that it isn't like painting, where the technology in painting, which I'm also a trained painter. But what happens is that, and I actually do a lot of printmaking. But what happens is that it doesn't evolve quite the same. Technology moves really, really fast. So, what happens is the fact that, part of the joy of working in technology is the fact that you're splashing in the new kiddie pool, with the people who have found the new kiddie pool. And, you're just saying, okay, isn't this interesting? But also with a refined sensibility. Because you're not just dealing with the novelty of the technology for the technology. In other words, you're obviously a person who has a developed sensibility. Who can then articulate a developed voice through these new tools. Which I think is really, really, really important in regards to some of these new technologies, because there's so many people who just think they're going to get famous just because they're using new tools, which, to tell you the truth, I think is bollocks. It's a cheap way in. So what happens is the fact that if you're an artist, you're an artist. But what I think is really, really exciting is that if you're an artist who's finding some of these new tools and you're an artist with a developed sensibility, you know, who's going to come in and make an informed body of work using these new tools, which I think is doubly exciting. You know, that's kind of where I try to come from as someone who's been in new media for 20 years. Or the thing is, or even the thing is, if you're a painter or a sculptor, you know, you have a developed sensibility, and you're bringing this to some of these new technologies, which I'm serious. A lot of the people who work in this stuff don't have this sort of thing. They think that they are apart from history, that they think that just because they've got something new that they're going to be, you know, reinventing art and the art world and that sort of thing. And a lot of people, there are a lot of people in there who are good artists, you know, but there are also a lot of people who are neophytes who are just coming in and they think they're going to reinvent the art world, and they are so completely wrong. But anyway, this augmented reality thing, what could I point you at? Let me just take 20 seconds and let me just say, okay, guess what? There is manifestar.info. That's my group, and it's manifestar.info. And basically what it is that there are two ways you can use this. You know, you use an iPad or a phone or something like that that's got a basically a microprocessor, a screen, and a camera in it, right? So what happens, there's two ways it can work, is that as a marker or an image-based thing, and you know, it'll look at whatever it's supposed to see, like a marker or like a certain picture of a bowl or something like that. And then this content, like a 3D dancing something or other, or a flock of birds or something, will fly out of the bowl or the picture or something like that. That's marker-based. And then there's another thing in which, if you go out and take a look at my Facebook, and I invite everybody to come friend me. The thing is that I did a whole series of augmented reality interventions about the NATO summit. So what I did is that I basically put these A-10 Warthog close support bombers, but I had them dropping little 8-bit, you know, pixelated hearts onto McCormick Place and onto Grant Park. So I have lots and lots of pictures that are captures from, you know, the police getting bombed with love, you know, and that sort of thing, and that people took from being on site and looking through their cell phone, and they just saw these airplanes swooping in and dropping hearts on everybody, you know, which is it's a really interesting thing. It's got a tiny bit of a learning curve, but the thing is that if you're interested in it, there's a guy named Mark Squaret who I could introduce you to that could at least tell you about where to go if you want to explore it a little bit, you know, at least get you started. And it's free.
Cool. Are we done?
So
No?
Joe, does that?
Oh, that was thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at it online, so I'm going to.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wait. What's the website again?
It's manifestar.info. And actually, we did and Manifestar with an A. We did a augmented reality Occupy Wall Street too, because we did a augmented reality protest, because the thing is that by law you can't protest, but we did anyway using augmented reality. So I had space invaders invading Wall Street. So anyway, yep.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
So I have to come back to the webinar now. Okay. I think we've gone on long enough.
Great.
Patrick, that's been really informative and really inspirational and really good. So thank you.
It's been my pleasure. I'm really glad that I'm really glad that you you had me.
Hey, wait a minute. Let's stick your email address in the box down in the chat box for those who want to ask you questions or pursue
Yeah. Let's see here. Let me get my. Let's see here. Okay, and then I'll just put.
Here, I can do it. I got it.
Okay. Well, I just did it.
Okay.
Oh, but I wrote it to you. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Go ahead and.
All right. So I was going to write it to Perry because I was asking him. Wait a minute. Everyone. There we go.
Right.
Paste. There.
Brilliant.
All right, everybody. I'm meeting you all. We're meeting in person on Wednesday with some really wonderful collectors on the north side of Chicago. I'll send out that information when I send out the recording information in a few minutes. Next week, we're meeting with Christoph Mao, who has a gallery in New York and Beijing, and we're meeting with Hamza Walker, who a few years ago was anointed one of the world's, United States' University of Chicago's top 10 curators.
Wow.
I think it was the country. I'm not sure. At any rate, there's some good stuff on the horizon. Tonight's been good. Everybody's unmuted. Patrick, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Else, thank you too. Good night, and I'll see some of you on Wednesday, and I'll see you on the internet. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Paul.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.